On to the NFL. We talked about the Thursday night games that are going on in college football, but you and I both said our attention will probably be directed at the Thursday night NFL game. And I think with good reason too, because this is probably the first time in a while that the New England Patriots in Week 14 are probably in a must-win scenario for their playoff hopes.
Yeah, I guess it's a fair way to put it, Higgins. That makes a lot of sense. And, you're always going to watch the game you have some money on, and this is where we're putting our money.
Absolutely. I'm putting my money in a few different spots with this. Now, I mentioned that New England has something to play for. They're sitting in third in their division. They're outside the wild card picture looking in, so there's some work to be done in the next 4 games if they are to try to keep that playoff streak alive with Tom Brady's departure. So, with that being said, New England already played in Los Angeles last week. It didn't affect them. They won 45-0. So why should I think the travel's going to affect them this week? If they even did travel back to the East just to come right back for a short week. I don't think they probably did. But the Patriots are 5-point underdogs after a 45-0 blowout of the Chargers last week. I'm going to take the Patriots +5 because they got more to play for. The Rams have not really been playing up to snuff. They won last week, but they lost the week before against San Fran, who's at the bottom of the NFC West. So the Patriots +5 feels good to me. And then you know what? I'm also taking the under here, Brett. And it's just because if you look at the stats, both of these teams are 4-8 on the season when it comes to over-unders. 4 overs, 8 unders. The Rams, at one point in their season, had 6 consecutive unders. The Patriots are in the midst of a streak of 4 consecutive unders. And the Rams, in all 5 of their home games so far this year, have hit the under. All signs point to under 45.5, so I'm not going to question it. I'm just going to take it.
I'm glad that we record this podcast from opposite coasts because I think you need a COVID test. Jake Higgins is betting an under. Someone make sure he's not sick. I don't know what to do here. Like, do we end the podcast? Should I call an ambulance? What's happening?
I'm not burning up. I'm feeling my forehead. I'm feeling okay.
Okay, so he's picking an under. Okay, there we go. Yeah, I'm gonna find myself on this game too, Higgins, but not in a normal way that I would bet it. I'm going in on a teaser, and the only thing you tease is yourself. But I'm going New England +11.5. The Jets +20. Kansas City -0.5 for +130. But right now I'm going to talk about New England +11.5. Kind of what you're saying. I think they're motivated. To be honest with you, I don't think they came back to the East Coast. That would be weird. Like, I definitely think they stayed out there and stayed in the time zone and stayed adjusted and all that.
Yeah, it's their second game in Los Angeles in the span of 5 days. It doesn't make sense for them to go back to New England just to fly right back to Los Angeles for a Thursday game.
So I have I'm not really too concerned about that. Hopefully they've all been getting good sleep. Like, the hotel beds are nice and comfy and they're ready to go. But I'm just going to take... The reason I'm taking it in a teaser is so I just get across some lines that I want to get across. I'd like to be across that 7. So I'd rather have 7 points with New England. And the teaser at +6.5 points on all these spreads gets me actually across a 2-possession game with 10. So just added bonus of getting across some key numbers there.
Yeah, and Kansas City at -0.5. I mean, that's a great pick to get whenever you can, of basically getting a Chiefs moneyline pick. But Jets +20, I mean, at this point, I don't care what the spread is for the Jets. Anything is possible. As we've seen last week, the Jets nearly pulled off a win before they decided to blitz on the final play of the game, and the Raiders came up with an upset victory. But at the same time, I don't know if 20 points is safe for the Jets either, so throwing them into that teaser to me is a little bit of a bold move.
Well, they better be able to cover 20 because I've also got them covering 13.5. You talked about last week's games. Well, I want to talk about last week's games for the Seahawks too, because the Giants went in there with Colt McCoy, who I don't know if he had won a football game in 3 years,
Doesn't matter. He
and
was the
won a
winningest.
football game.
He was the winningest college football player before Marcus Mariota, and that's all that matters.
That's it.
That's
Yeah,
all that
I saw
matters.
another great stat. Russell Wilson never finished higher than ninth in Heisman voting, and Colt McCoy finished second twice. So clearly, Colt McCoy is the better player. But the New York Jets going to Seattle, I think Jamal Adams is going to be hyped up. I don't know how great the Seattle defense is. Honestly, the offense was questionable last week. The Jets' offense has put up 27 points or more every week. They've had their three top wide receivers available. They should have them available again this week. So I'm pretty high on the Jets covering this 2 touchdowns. I don't love picking the Jets. Like it's yucky. I really don't like it, but a backdoor cover on 2 touchdowns is certainly within the realm of possibilities, Higgins.
Yes, and the backdoor covers hopefully what you are playing for there. In my opinion, I guess that's what you'd probably be playing with or for. I am going to be on the opposite side of one of your teaser picks, though. Dolphins plus 7.5 against the Chiefs, and I think the Chiefs are going to win this game. It's going to help them be able to shore up that top spot in the AFC, which Pittsburgh losing puts the Chiefs in a great spot to grab that top overall spot, home field advantage in the playoffs, and all that comes with it. But Miami in this game, like I said, New England has a lot to play for. Miami is still trying to chase down Buffalo, and they're trying to hold off New England, and they're trying to grab a wild card spot if they can't catch Buffalo. There's a lot of pressure on Miami right here. I wouldn't be surprised if they come out and get a win, but I'm not going to expect it. I'm not going to bet them on the money line, so I'm taking them at plus 7.5, and hopefully it stays within a touchdown for me.
Yeah, I mean, I'm on Kansas City basically on the money line, so theoretically we could both win on this one, Higgins. There's a nice 6 point middle there for us.
Yes, and the
7
vig
point
on
middle, actually.
the vig on the spread is actually pretty interesting right now. Kansas City minus 7.5 at plus 102. Miami's plus 7.5 at minus 122. So that line's probably going to move in Oregon here pretty soon. So I'm going to actually take that after we're done recording this, Brett, instead of on Sunday, the day of, like we have normally been doing. And that's just because I like that spread being over 7, and who knows if it goes up to 8 is probably where it would have to go for it to get back to a minus 110 on each side, but then more money can get through it in Kansas City, and who knows where it goes. So I'm just going to take the plus 7.5 right now and just deal with it like that.
All right, there you go. Do have one more lean, Higgins. I am leaning Minnesota versus the Bucks. They're getting 6.5 points. Minnesota's fighting for their playoff lives, and Tampa Bay has not looked very impressive of late. I know they're coming off their bye week, which hopefully they got right, but 6.5 points for Minnesota, who kind of struggled with Jacksonville last week. Hopefully they got regrouped in practice this week, re-energized, knowing that they need to win pretty much 3 of their next 4 games to make the postseason. I expect Minnesota to come out pretty fired up in this one, Higgins. I think 6.5's a lot. I'm not ready to bet it yet. I plan on betting some college basketball throughout the week that I may have more interest in. So assuming I do okay on that, I should find myself on Minnesota plus 6.5 on Sunday.
Well, I love that Minnesota bet, but for reasons off of the field. So Tom Brady's mind may not entirely be on football right now because a few days ago, earlier this week, Brett, don't know if you saw this news, but security alarms went off at Tom Brady's mansion in Massachusetts because a drunk homeless man broke in and fell asleep on his couch.
Well,
So
I
Tom Brady
mean,
may have been dealing with some insurance people, may have been dealing with the cops and getting the tapes from his security cameras to the police station and all that. I don't know if he's necessarily had the time to focus solely on the playbook and the game plan for this week. So I like the pick of Minnesota there, with Brady's mind being a little elsewhere, perhaps.
Are there drunk homeless people in Newton, Mass? I had no idea. Didn't he put his Newton? I thought he put his Massachusetts home on the market. I guess it didn't sell. Oh, what is going on? I did not hear about that. That's crazy.
And then one last pick for this game, Brett, is Washington versus San Fran. And I'm going to take the 49ers -3 because, I mean, Washington did get that win last week, but it didn't really impress me like it probably should have. Pittsburgh, I think, is the worst 11-0 team that we have seen in years, maybe ever in the NFL. Pittsburgh has not really been impressive. They've been able to squeak out a lot of wins. So Washington knocking down the last undefeated team, while impressive, is not as impressive as it necessarily should be. San Fran at 5-7, they just got their running game back last week. That loss to Buffalo, I think, more says a lot about Josh Allen than it does about the San Fran team that has been just riddled with injuries. So I'm taking San Fran -3. I think they're taking another step in the right direction this week, having their offense back on their feet, getting an easier opponent like Washington compared to Buffalo. I think 3 points is not too much to cover, so the 49ers -3 at home should not be a problem, even though they're not going to be playing in San Francisco and they're going to be playing in Arizona.
Yeah, again, I'm staying away from this one simply because of that. It's just been, they talked about it during the last game, the Bills game, how strange it's been for the 49ers. Like, they've all been basically locked in their hotel rooms and they don't really like it and whatever. And I mean, that's just not a great mindset. But, like, I'm not going to bet on Washington here. So, this is a stay away game for me, for sure.
And then a few other interesting games that are going on. I was really tempted on this Titans-Jaguars game. Did not end up pulling the trigger on Titans -7.5. That was a little high for me. If it drops under 7, though, I could see myself taking that potentially. And then this Colts Raiders game, I really did not know what to make of it. I like this Colts team. They've kind of made me a believer in recent weeks. The Raiders should come back focused after escaping with a win against the Jets last week, but who knows how they respond. I'm really not sure, so I'm staying away from that as well. And then Taysom Hill versus Jalen Hurts, the battle of the backup quarterbacks. That should be fun to watch.
Yeah, I mean that should be interesting. I don't Is Drew Brees back this week? I'm not sure, so I'll have to
I
keep
have
my
not
eyes
heard
out.
that yet.
Yeah, I'll have to keep my eyes out on that. I knew there was a chance that he could be back this week, so we'll have to see what happens there. One that I'm keeping my eye on, Higgins, is Steelers +2.5 versus the Bills. I'm not sold that the Steelers are done yet. Bills looked great last week. Steelers didn't, so I understand why the line is where it is. But I might have just taken the dog, whoever it was in that game, because really that's a 50-50 game.
So I just looked up Drew Brees' injury status. He's still on the IR right now, so they don't have to update whether he's questionable or not until game day necessarily. But according to Ian Rappaport of NFL Network, he said, quote, Drew Brees won't practice much, if at all, on Wednesday. So
All right, so
maybe
maybe
one
more
more
Taysom
week.
Hill. Maybe more
Maybe one
Taysom
more
Hill.
week. Maybe New Orleans, who's already clinched their playoff spot, is going to see if they can secure that first round bye without having to put Brees out there and just give their 40-plus-year-old quarterback some additional time to recover. I mean, he cracked multiple ribs and punctured a lung, so he could use more than the time he's already had, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm sure he could. He wouldn't hate an extra week of healing. I'm sure, but sometimes these competitors, Higgins, they're not always thinking about that. They just want to get back on the field, right? So we'll see what happens there. You know what, Taysom Hill's certainly played well enough, so there's no reason not to trust the Saints. But I do expect the Eagles to have maybe a little bit more of a spark with Jalen Hurts. They looked a little bit better with him, I think.
Yeah, they did. I think it also kind of cements the point that I made on a previous episode of I thought Carson Wentz was the wrong decision for the Eagles when they decided to re-sign him over Nick Foles the first time, and it looks like that experiment may be about over. I do agree with what Jason Kelsey came out and said, though, of with the amount that that offense has failed, Carson Wentz is taking a lot of the blame, but that falls on everybody on that offense. It's not just the quarterback's fault for the output that you've seen with the Philadelphia Eagles, which I would agree to. There's been a lot of issues in Philadelphia overall, and it can't all fall on Carson Wentz's back. At the same time, when you're the captain, you're the quarterback, you're the highest paid player, fair amount of the attention's going to go to you.
Yeah, I think all things said there are very true.